Hello everyone, welcome to Science Brains. Today I am going to continue chapter 5, which is separation of substances, and this is part 2 of this chapter. If you want to see part 1, in which we have already completed half of the chapter, so for that you can go in description box of this video where you will get the link for part 1 of this chapter. In this video we will cover rest of the chapter, and in last we will discuss some keywords also. So let's start. Sedimentation. The process of settling down of the heavier particles present in a liquid mixture. It is a process by which heavier impurities present in liquid, normally water, settles down at the bottom of the container containing the mixture. So in this process, basically heavier particles settles down at the bottom of the container and lighter particles comes up. So like this we can separate two substances. So here some examples are given. For example, in a mixture of sand and water, sand settles down at the bottom of the container, oil and water separated from the mixture. This is done by the process of sedimentation. So here two processes are given which can be separated with the help of this process sedimentation. First is sand and water. If we have to separate sand from water, then easily we can separate it by the process of sedimentation. So how we can separate it? Sand is heavier than water. So sand particles settles down at the bottom of the container and water comes up. So like this sand and water separated. Oil and water also we can separate it because oil is lighter than water, so oil comes up and water settles down at the bottom of the container. So like this we can separate these two substances also. So now let's see what is next process. Decantation. The process of separating liquid components of a mixture while the solid components has settled at the bottom as sediments is called decantation. So this is a process in which we separate two liquid form of components, but in the process of sedimentation we separate two solid components, but in this process we separate two liquid components. So that's why it is called decantation. For example, separation of a mixture of oil from water. This process can also be used to separate two liquids that do not mix. For example, oil and water. So if we have to separate oil from water, then easily we can separate with the help of the process of decantation. Okay, this process can also be used to separate two liquids that do not mix. For example, these two are insoluble substances. Oil cannot mix into water, so that's why we can separate oil from water. See here in picture it is given two layers form. Top layer is of oil, so we can separate top layer oil from water. If a mixture of such liquid is allowed to stand for some time, they form two separate layers. The components that forms the top layer can then be separated by decantation. So here two separated layers formed after some time. The component that forms the top layer can be separated with the help of decantation. We can separate oil from water by this process. Filtration. The process of separating solid particles from a liquid by passing through a filter or pores of filter paper. So in this process we need to take a filter paper. In the process of filtration, filter paper used. So here solid particles we can separate it from a liquid by passing through a filter or pores, because in filter paper there small holes are there, so from there liquid can go but solid cannot go from there. So that's why we can separate solid and liquid by this process. For example, coffee filter, tea bags, sand filter, etc. So coffee filter also there. In coffee filter we can separate coffee from the liquid, and tea bags also. Tea is solid particles and we can separate a liquid form, and solid particles also we can separate, and sand filter also we can separate sand also with the help of filter paper. Filtration is a process by which impurities or particles are removed from a fluid, either a liquid or a gas. The liquid or feed is poured over a filter which catches particles and allows filtered liquid or filtrate to move through it. So filtration is a process by which impurities, non-useful components, non-useful particles can be removed from a fluid. From a fluid means from a liquid. Here fluid means liquid, either a liquid or a gas. The liquid or feed is poured over a filter. So that's why we can filter it with the help of filter paper, which catches particles and allow filtered liquid. Filter paper allow liquid to move through it, but it cannot allow the solid particles to move through it. It allow only liquid to move through it. Here a picture is given of filtration. See, this is a beaker and dirty water also here, and this is funnel. Funnel is like a filter paper, clean water, and in a container clean water is filled, and this is sand. See, so by this we can separate solid particles. The filter paper cannot allow to move solid particles through it. It allows only liquid to move through it. Evaporation. The process of conversion of water into its vapor is called evaporation. Evaporation is a very easy method of separation. In previous classes also you studied about evaporation. The process of conversion of water. If we boil a water, then after some time we can watch some vapor is there. Vapor comes up. So this is a process of evaporation. For example, when we spread wet clothes on a rope or wire, they dry up after some time. The water present in wet clothes seems to disappear. Water present in wet clothes evaporates by receiving heat from the sun to form water vapor. So you see at your home, if we spread wet clothes on a rope or a wire, then they dry up after some time. Why they disappear? Water present in a wet cloth seems to disappear. How? Water present in wet clothes evaporates by receiving heat from the sun. The sun gives heat to clothes, so that's why the water which is present in wet clothes, it seems to disappear. It evaporates by receiving heat from the sun to form water vapor. It forms water vapor and it goes up. So that's why after some time the clothes dry up. Evaporation is used to obtain a solid substance that has dissolved in water or any other liquid. As I told you, that one example is also, if we boil some water, then after some time we see water evaporates it. So water vapors comes up. So this is also a process of evaporation. Here some pictures are also given. See this, I told you that if we boil water, then water vapors comes up. See, and this is water cycle. In previous classes also you have studied about water cycle. In water cycle also, the river you see, in the water of river goes up, it evaporates because sun gives heat to it. So that's why it evaporates the vapor. So that's why the water of river reduce or disappear. It cannot disappear because the amount of water is very large, so it cannot disappear, but it decreases. So this is the process of evaporation. Now see next method, condensation. Now see what is condensation. The process of conversion of water vapor into its liquid form is called condensation. For example, if we take water in a pan and if heat it, the water in the pan will start boiling. So liquid form of water is changing into vapor form. So in this process we have to convert water vapor into liquid form, and in the process of evaporation we have to convert liquid into water vapor, but in this process we have to reverse it. We have to we have to opposite. Condensation is opposite to evaporation. In this process we have to convert water vapor into liquid form. And here's one example is given. If we take water in a pan, and if after some time if it start boiling, then we can see that liquid change into its vapor form. It is the reverse of evaporation, as I said just now, where liquid water becomes a vapor. Condensation happens two ways. Either the air is cooled to its dew point, or it becomes so saturated with water vapor that it cannot hold any more water. So as I said that it is the reverse of evaporation, it is just opposite to evaporation. And condensation happens in one or two ways. So first is either the air is cooled to its dew point. Dew point means when moisture comes in air, or it becomes so saturated with water vapor that it cannot hold any more water. Okay, so here two pictures are also given. By this you can understand easily. So next is, can water dissolve any amount of a substance? Can water dissolve in any amount of a substance? No, water cannot dissolve any substance in any amount. Some substances are insoluble in water. Different substances dissolve so to different extent in water. So it cannot. No, the answer of this question is in no. Water cannot dissolve in any substance in any amount. Some substances are insoluble in water, that's why it is a reason. Different substances dissolve to different extent in water. Now see what is insoluble and what is soluble substances. Insoluble is solid materials that do not dissolve in water are said to be insoluble in water. For example, sand, wood, stone, chalk powder and wax. So what is insoluble? Insoluble is that which cannot mix with water, which cannot dissolve in water, which cannot mix with water. That is said to be insoluble substance in water. For example, sand, because sand cannot mix with water, wood also cannot mix with water, and stone, chalk powder and wax. These examples cannot mix in water, that's why it is an example. These are examples of insoluble substances. Now see what is soluble substances. Solid materials that dissolve in water are said to be soluble in water. For example, common salt and sugar. So this is just opposite of insoluble substances. That materials, solid materials which can be dissolved in water easily, is said to be soluble substances. For example, common salt and sugar. These are the two examples of soluble substances. Now see keywords. As I said in the beginning of this video that in last we will discuss some keywords also. So let's see. Churning, the process of separation of lighter particles of a suspended solid from a liquid is called churning. So see what is churning. It is a process in which we separate lighter particles from a heavier particles. So this is called churning. Now see second. Condensation, the process of changing of a substance from vapor to liquid on cooling is called condensation. So here some keywords are given because here I give some keywords and their definition, because in exams it can be asked that what is churning and what is condensation. So these defines are perfect to write in exams. So see what is condensation. As I told you in chapter, the process of changing of a substance, water, from vapor into liquid. It is a process in which we change a substance from water to liquid on cooling. It's called condensation. Now see what is third keyword. Decantation, the process of separating liquid components of a mixture while the solid component has settled at the bottom as sediments is called decantation. So see what is decantation. If we separate liquid components form a mixture of the solid components, and it is a little bit related to sedimentation. It's called decantation. Now see what is evaporation. The changing of a liquid into vapors or gas is called evaporation. As we studied in between of the chapter that evaporation and condensation are opposite to each other. It is the changing liquid into vapors or gas form. That's why it is called evaporation. Now see what is fifth keyword. Filtration. The process of separating solid particles from a mixture by passing through a filter or pores of filter paper is called filtration. So in this process we separate solid particles from a liquid by passing through a filter or pores of filter paper. In this process we can separate with the help of filter paper because solid particles can go through filter paper, but solid particles cannot go, but liquid can go through it. So that's why it is a process of filtration. Now see what is sixth keyword. Hand picking. The process used to separate slightly larger particles from a mixture by hand is called hand picking. For example, stone pieces can be separated from wheat or rice by hand picking. So it is a simple the process to separate larger particles. It is larger particles which we can see with our naked eyes, and we can separate it by our hand. And here's one example is also given. Stone, we can separate stone pieces from wheat also. So this is one example of hand picking. Now see what is seventh keyword. Saturated solution. A solution in which no more substance can be dissolved at the temperature is called a saturated solution. Now see what is saturated solution. It is a solution which cannot dissolve at that temperature, which cannot dissolve with a substance which no more substance can be dissolved, which cannot dissolve at that temperature. So that's why it is called saturated solution. Sedimentation. Now see what is sedimentation. Sedimentation is a process of settling down of the heavier particles present in a liquid mixture. For example, in a mixture of sand and water, sand settles down at the bottom. So this also we have studied in between of the chapter. What is sedimentation? It is a process of settling down of heavier particles. Heavier particles settles down at the bottom of the container, and lighter substance comes up. So like this we can separate two substances. For example, in a mixture of sand and water also we can separate by this process, because sand is heavier particles, so it settles down at the bottom of the container, and water comes up, so we can separate water from sand. Now see what is ninth keyword. Sieving. Now see what is sieving. Process by which fine particles are separated from bigger particles by using a sieve. So in this process basically sieve is used to separate a fine particles from a bigger particles. So by using a sieve, this process is used by a sieve. So it is called sieving. Now see what is 10th keyword. Solution. A mixture of soluble solid in liquid is called solution. Now if we mix any two substances which are soluble into water or in anything, if we mix it, then it is called a solution. Now see what is 11th keyword. Threshing. The process of beating harvested crops to separate the grains from the stalk, the dried stems, is called threshing. So now see, it is a process of beating. The farmers beat harvested crops to separate the grains from the stalk. The dried stems is called threshing. Now see 12th keyword. Winnowing. The process of separating heavier and lighter components of a mixture by wind or by blowing air is called winnowing. Now see what is winnowing. It is a process in which we separate heavier and lighter components of a mixture by blowing air or wind. It's called winnowing. So here we have completed this chapter. So in the next video we will cover next chapter. Please don't forget to like, share and subscribe to my channel. Thank you.